probably it's one of the tougher trips I think you have in college football to go play a game, on the West Coast, and I thought our kids handled it well. I thought they played with great energy and passion and togetherness, and they fought for the 60 minutes, and obviously extremely happy to get out of there, with a win against another Power 5 opponent. And I think I saw a stat somewhere that teams that turned the ball over 4 times, plus the number of first downs we had, I think it's like 1 in 65 or something, and now it's 2 in 66, I guess, or that could be wrong on the numbers. Don't quote me on that, but it seemed a pretty. You just don't win many games like that, and so we're very fortunate. But I know this. I don't know that I've ever had a season where you didn't have a game where you felt like, God, we easily could have lost that game, but boy, our kids found a way, and you can build on stuff like that. And just really proud of our staff and kids. I don't think anyone quit believing that we could win the game, and it showed in the way they played. And obviously the defense had more than their share of times that they had to go back out there and too quick, and because of the number of turnovers and lack of production on third down. And, man, they never once, it was always, we got you, we got you, we got you. And I'm just really proud of that growth that we can use to build on for sure. And obviously they played, really well on that side of the ball, and special teams played better than average, but not great, but better than average. Offense was awful, and we got the ball in the third quarter. I don't know how many minutes were left, but our first possession in the third quarter, we had only had 25 offensive plays. And I do believe we had a really good plan offensively, particularly in the second half, and think we would have scored points had we not turned it over 2 more times. But we only had 4 possessions, and those turnovers are just, you can't win football games turning the ball over. And thought we were ripping off some pretty good runs, and either had a penalty or a turnover for those few possessions that we had the second half. So I think there's some things we can build on for sure, but ultimately the bottom line is our kids found a way to win, and we celebrate that. And you can write it however you want to write it, but the bottom line is Auburn Tigers are 2-0, and we celebrate that.
Coach, all offseason you talked about it through the fall and even through the season as it started. Robbie Ashford was going to be a huge part of your team's success. We saw a heavy dosage of him on Saturday night, flipping back and forth between him and Peyton Thorne. What was their response, Peyton and Robbie's response, and their attitude towards both of them seeing heavy minutes on Saturday?
Yeah, I haven't seen them and talked to them today yet, and obviously everybody's on the plane ride was just trying to rest, and they both seem fine. I don't know that that's exactly what I want it to look like, but we just had no juice, no momentum, and so you're kind of searching for it. And we've got to figure that piece of it out to where you're not we need Peyton to play better, truthfully, too. Now, the last drive, he played well. Prior to that, I think a few of the throws were inaccurate. And I thought he left the pocket early once. And look, I'm not beating up Peyton. He played really well that last possession, but we do need more consistency there throughout the whole game. And that's our challenge, is to get him and Robbie and Holden to that point. And so they know that, but Robbie's got to get his touches. And we had a really good package for him, and had a good drive going in that package, and then one of our running backs went the wrong way, and it created a negative play and got us behind the chains. And so it was just one thing after another offensively, which ultimately, it has to start with me and our offensive staff as to why we, did some of the things we did. We don't control the fumbles necessarily, but there were other things that happened that caused us negative plays that, maybe we need to coach better.
Row 2 on the left. Well, you can talk too. One of the things you've talked about is taking shots downfield. You didn't do much of that Saturday. Was that by design? Was it something Cal was doing, or was it just the ineffectiveness doing it?
Well, Cal was, I think we only called 3 and probably should have called more. But it was, Cal, played us a little differently. But there were times that I thought had, early in the game, I know we had one real shot, and, we read a different side of the field. And then our receivers didn't win a few of the others that we called. They were in man coverage quite a bit. And they won some of those battles on us.
Coach, after the first game, you mentioned some of the defensive alignment issues. How did you work on that, and were you pleased with the progress they made in week 2?
We definitely made progress. It was much better. The effort was incredible. Lows were way, way down. We still have some alignment issues. But, I mean, every game you're going to have some. I would like for it to be in the single digits. I think we were around 10. But they weren't. I mean, some of them were being really ticky-tack and hard. You should be lined up in a 30 technique, and you're not quite there at linebacker. So we're being really hard on that right now. But so some of them were pretty insignificant. And there were others that could have been significant. And again, you're not going to ever completely change that, because the offenses are going to throw something at you that you didn't prepare for, or some motion or some shift. We just got to make sure we're all on the same page when that occurs. And there were a few of those early in the second half that we were still trying to figure that out as the ball was being snapped. So we got to continue to work on it, but it was much better.
Coach, you've chosen to give up play calling for the first time in your career. How would you characterize what we saw on offense Saturday? Was it more play calling, or was it more on the execution side? And did you take over play calling at 80 point during that game?
No, I called 3 things in that game, and it's hard. I'm not going to lie. And, I don't want to make I have great confidence in our staff. And, one game is not something that you should, particularly when you have 4 turnovers and the number of penalties we had that got us behind the chains. I just think that, I know y'all don't, I'm not making any excuses, because we have to own what's on the film, but when you turn it over 4 times and you don't get a lot of possessions in a game, it's hard. And that's kind of where we were. And every time we did get an explosive run on the reverse or something, there's another penalty. And we did everything that we didn't do in the first game. We didn't have turnovers. We didn't have penalties. And dang, if we didn't look like it was the first game offensively. And so I did not take it over. I did call the fade to Rivaldo and a couple other things. But no, it's not at that point at all. I have great confidence in them. We've had a lot of tough talks this morning. And, I can't be everywhere, but ultimately I have to own everything. And I spent a lot of time with our defensive guys last week, and going to spend a lot of time with our offensive guys this week. And but it's really not. It's about us all seeking wisdom as to how we can get better, me included. And that was our main theme this morning in our truth meeting is, man, how do you seek wisdom to get better and to improve the chances our kids have of winning football games and being better men? And what does that look like for you? And who do you have? And we've got to have each other. And everybody's got assistants in this building, assistant O-line coaches, D-line coaches, safety coaches, quarterback coaches. And it's high time that nobody has an ego, and we all all right, how can are we doing too much of something? And what can we do? And who needs the touches? And, 5 and 6 for us need more touches. Those 2 guys they're our best receivers. Now, I wish they were bigger, because the catch radius is not big, but and we got to improve the others. But those guys are pretty good in space, and so we've got to use those guys more. Rivaldo obviously needs to be utilized, and he was well in the second half. But we got to play to our strengths and figure out how to make it look different every week. And So those are some of the things I challenged them with this morning is, how are you going to do that? And if you need help, I swear I can help. I'll draw them up and show you how to make it look different. But they have the ability to do that. And so, again, I think I know you guys have to, it was ugly. There's no two ways around it, but you also have to take into account the number of turnovers and penalties for possessions versus was it just awful play calls. I didn't see many awful play calls, truthfully. They all have a chance to work. Nothing schematically was off about it. I think we need a little more balance, and we got to figure out what that looks like exactly that our quarterbacks and receivers can handle. And our RPO world, we didn't utilize near enough. We've got to work on that. So we'll challenge each other to be better this week as coaches and players.
It's on the point of a play calling. When you talk to Philip about that, as you mentioned, what does that look like going forward now? As you were saying, it was hard to keep yourself from calling more plays at that point.
We're not overreacting to anything. I have great trust in him. We're going to work together this week on the game plan, and and obviously he doesn't have an ego. He doesn't care if I step in and call it, but I need to probably be in more meetings. And like I said last week, we were really that game went nothing like I expected. I just got to tell you. It was nothing like I expected, and which is good and bad, I guess. So we worked really hard on how do we come up with the right defensive plan for our guys, and how do we handle the tempo. And heck, if they didn't go much tempo at all, really. They went a few plays, but nothing like what I'm used to from Spavital, and we never got in our tempo hardly at all because we never were efficient enough on first down to get in it. And it just was totally different than what I expected. But again, Philip is going to be fine. And but yeah, we're going to work together this week and see if we can't get a great plan in place to not repeat last week's performance.
How do you think Peyton did with his decision-making, specifically in the RPOs that you guys called? I know that was something from
We
week
didn't
one.
call enough. We didn't call enough RPOs, so I can't say Peyton was that was him. I just think he was inconsistent with the early throws that we had, and that really continued. Again, third quarter, we didn't have the ball very much, or the fourth quarter, truthfully. So, the last drive is one we're going to choose to concentrate on and focus on and see if we can't build on that. But it was inconsistent until that point.
When you look at this defense, how much have they progressed since the start of this preseason? And then just talk about the job your staff has done in trying to fill pieces, because you've had some injuries on that side, and they just kind of keep plugging in.
It was a little scary the second half. We had Keontae out and Simpson out to start the third quarter, which we already had Pritchett out who couldn't play. And so you're playing a lot of young guys that hadn't had a ton of reps. And so and Keontae was out until the last drive, truthfully, the whole second half. So, and then DK went out. So we were greatly challenged. Nixon dinged his hand there, his wrist that he had surgery on, and we're thin at linebacker, really thin. And so it was quite a challenge. So really proud of our kids and the staff. They just kept battling and finding a way to get off the field and get important stops. Did we improve from week 1 to week 2? Absolutely. Now, are we fixed yet and ready to say we're fixing to dominate and hold every opponent to 10 points? I would like to say that, but that's not accurate. We got to keep working because tougher tests are coming.
Do you expect those guys like Donovan and Pritchett back this week? Some of the guys that you mentioned.
It's too early to tell, I think, on both. I would love to hope that they both would be ready to go for sure, but it's too early to tell. Would love to get. We're without J.D. Rhymes so far too this year, and I think he could help us. So, but it's too early on Monday to tell.
Yeah, I want to ask you about Kayan Lee. I mean, he played a lot of snaps the other day, and he played a lot better than he did against UMass. Are you seeing him kind of step it up?
Yeah, and there's, we think he's going to be he's really talented. He's going to be really good. He's just young. There's times I think he's still a little unsure about his confidence level and gives too much ground. There were a couple of those in the game, and obviously the 15-yard penalty we don't need. That was critical at that juncture. But did he play well? Yes. He still can get better. Yes. But God, we're glad we have him. We're really thin back there right now.
Yes, you mentioned playing Jay Fair and Varmore together. Do you think Fair is more built to play on the outside, or do you think it's the other way around?
I don't think either are built to play outside, truthfully. But obviously, unless you get in 10 personnel, there's one of them will have to if you're going to play them both at the same time. And so I don't know if I said that. I said they need to get more touches. Now, does that look like them playing more at the same time? Maybe. We got to figure that out this week for sure, or today.
Thank you. 2 questions, if I may, but first one, just in your coaching experience, a win like this in an adverse situation, how does that pay dividends later in the season? And then secondly, just looking ahead to Samford, curious if you have any relationship with Chris Hatcher and what you know about the Bulldogs.
Yeah, there's no question. You're very sharp with the question, because a win like that, that's a tough trip. And I won't go on Thursday again if we ever have to do that again. And that trip back is really, really, really hard. I mean, we rolled in here at 10 o'clock yesterday morning, and I don't know that you can recover immediately in the next week for that. But I think there's so much to build on, because I'm still learning this team. They're still learning me, and I was so pleased of the way it just was no panic. It was just, we're going to figure this out somehow, some way, and get out of here with a win. And not every team in year one have I felt could handle that, and I wasn't sure about our kids, truthfully, and I really thought we were going to go in there and score 30, 40 points and make it easy on the defense, and Lord knows that didn't happen. And I was so proud of just the leadership on that side of the ball that just, we got you. And Eugene Asante played his tail off, and as did others. I don't want to get to pointing them out, but he played really well. Jalen McLeod makes us different when he's playing. So there's so much to build on from that, because we're going to have some adverse situations in this league, particularly at the point we are in our program. And so we can point back to these moments of how you should fight to the end, irregardless of what the result ends up being. That's the way we should keep fighting. So I think that's, Hatcher and I have known each other for years. I think he's one of the better offensive coaches in football. He's done a remarkable job there, and he will have his kids excited and well prepared to play here, I have no doubt. And they'll test you in the passing game for sure and throw it all around. I know I think the last time he played here, I believe it was here. I know I watched the film somehow, but I think it was here. But, man, it was every polecat and quads and every formation you can imagine that he pulled out and had success moving the ball. And so I have great respect for him as a man and as a coach, and I know he'll have his guys ready.
When it comes to your run defense, how did you see them respond based off of what wasn't a great performance in week 1 against UMass, plus the outside chatter from your opponent? How did you see that run defense respond on Saturday and moving forward for Samford this week?
Well, the stats are what they are, and so they performed, and they stopped the run. And so we absolutely improved from week 1 to week 2 in that, and I don't know that has any bearing on what you do in week 3. You better prepare the same way, and you better have a great plan, and know you've got to do it again and again and again. And but we did absolutely felt like we had to stop the run and make them one-dimensional. We weren't sure that either quarterback could all night long throw it and beat us. I said wasn't sure. I'm not saying they couldn't, but it wasn't enough tape to really. But we kind of just, you know, when you look at 2 transfer guys and they weren't used to throw it at their old school, you kind of just hope in your mind that that's a situation where maybe they can't throw it well enough to beat you. So let's be sure we've got to stop the run, because they had really talented running backs, and I thought our kids did a great job of doing that.
Coach, you mentioned getting 5 and 6 more touches. What about the rest of the wide receiver room? Are you expecting more production out of the other guys too?
Well, you sure hope so. Well, we haven't proved we can do it yet. So until we do, I mean, we've got to prove that we can win some one-on-ones and we can throw accurate balls to them, and you know, we got to keep improving that room. I've said that since I got here, and that's still the case.
Coach, the Cal running back, the young guy, Jayden Knott, gave you guys what might be a little bit of bulletin board material before this one. We had heard that maybe they'd use that for some motivation. How much do you use those kind of things to motivate your team going into a matchup like this?
I honestly don't really use that a lot. I think if that's, now I heard our kids talking about it, which I don't think that hurt, and I hope he's okay. I know he got hurt, and but you know, I don't like our kids to do that, and I hope ours don't ever for games, because it did probably fire our guys up a little bit defensively. And I did mention it in my pregame talk. I was comparing it to one of my real life experiences with a guy in high school, and I did use that in pregame, but I don't think that's the reason we stopped the run. But it certainly did give them some motivation, for sure.
Hugh, how did you feel like the offensive line did in the game on Saturday?
I thought they did fine, truthfully, and that's the shame of it. I thought they handled the movements and stuff really well. There was one breakdown in protection. The others, I think, we kind of caused with either setting the protection wrong or moving out of the pocket too early. But I think, again, without the turnovers, I think you're looking at another 250-yard plus rushing night. And so I thought they were doing a fine job of run blocking.
You talked about getting McLeod back. What did it add to the defense, and then how much of a boost is that moving forward, having that speed off the edge?
I think he's probably 85%. I'd like for him to get to 100%. And then I think he really gives us a boost. But at 85%, he's made us better. He's strong at the point of attack, quick twitched, and can rush the passer. I don't think he got a sack the other night. I don't think, but he's different than what we've been presenting. So he helps us all the way around.
Yeah, a question about the quarterback rotation. I mean, if you're trying to unlock more consistency, wouldn't it make sense to kind of pick a guy and stick with him, or do you like this rotational thing?
That's the big challenge. I do not like the way the other night went with it. But at the same time, I think Robbie has to get his touches. And so that is a absolute something that's on my mind, and we've got to figure it out. All right, Coach. Appreciate you. Yep. Thank y'all.